السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. All right. Whew. Let me just check. This is working. Bismillah, inna alhamdulillah wa kafa. Salatu wassalamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa wa ala ibadihi alladhina irtada wa man bihudahum ihtada wa bi athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa wa ba'd. فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا. Whew, wow. Right, so it has been so long. I'm actually just I thought, I'm testing out this equipment. This is some new equipment. And part of why amongst, I guess, as always in life, a myriad of reasons. There was also the also the element that my equipment, my camera had been also damaged by. I think the culprit is my little gremlin. Aya, so Allah bless her and then bless the equipment and sabr. And also shukran. So, this had been on my mind for a while, and really just trying to, refocus. So, shukran. And shukran to all of you as well, reaching out, and especially Omar Raja Ji for also being very helpful and sponsoring in part my some new equipment to say, well, let's get back on the road. Yeah, people, ya salam. So much has been going on, so much to talk about. Perhaps not tonight, but let's see how you've all been. Look at this. As soon as I come on the questions, ya salam. Hi. Salam. I'm Questor. Much love to you too. Muhammad Abdullah, after so long it has. Miss Girl, salam, it's been a while. It has indeed. What are the Suhail with a question? These are the people preoccupied with seeking ilm. Allah. That what are the limitations of rationality? Right, so yeah, what? Allah. So much has been going on, ya salam. And I will in the coming days and weeks get back with a lot of these interesting discussions because they are long overdue, I guess. I'm going to also be releasing an evaluation video now that the dust is settling. An evaluation on the whole India-Pakistan thing. Amidst other I suppose mental meanderings and musings that I've been preoccupied with. Did you hear about Yasir Qadhi's new book on understanding Salafism? I haven't, no. I don't know. Is it any good, is it? Understanding Salafism. I mean, on one hand, one could think, well, what is there to understand? That's the Salafi-esque paradigm. Allah. Khair. It will always be that, I guess, there will always be, as I guess, horses for courses. And, there will always be different categories, compartments of people. And some will relate to certain things more than others. Khair. Right. Yeah. What do we have here? Mufti up late again. Hi, this Kambacht vampire lifestyle doesn't it doesn't really leave me, does it? Yeah. The book has been applauded by Dr. Jan Hoover, who is the leading academic on Ibn Taymiyyah in the West. Khair, I guess that's the book by Sheikh Yasser Qadi then. But yeah, what has been going on, people? What do we have here? Mufti Abu Layth, you have abandoned us. Kahan yaar? Allah, Allah. Nobody has abandoned anyone. We're all right here, just on our own individual journeys, I guess. But at the same time, you know, it's also a collective journey. People are still, you know, मैं अकेला ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल मगर लोग साथ आते गए और कारवां बनता गया. That's the thing, isn't it? There's a caravan. Allah has emerged, you know. So, and I guess this is something. Look, the last time I saw you was 3 years ago. Allah bless you. Well, here I am right here, and you know, doing my own kind of research and learning, and yeah, I've been well. Shukran. Yeah, somebody said there's been a India-Pakistan war. I am going to do an evaluation video on that now that my equipment is in operating order. So we'll come to that as well, inshallah. Not today, but I'll do a video on that very soon. Yeah. What's this? What are your thoughts? What is your response? Necessity on Farid's necessity of Hadith book. I don't know what that is. What's his naughty? So yeah. I don't know what the Hadith. Yeah, I mean, I guess in time, you know, we can do some discussions on these things. And it's always, I think, the best way to always understand things is the living tradition. You know, the living tradition is what really kind of allows us to anchor and nest our, you know, the deen, our faith, the legacy. Yeah. And although, as Imam Malik said, Subulullahi kathira, you know, the paths are many to Allah. So, but to me, it will always be the school of Medina. And the school of Medina has always granted us, it's given us that such a firm foundation. And the school of Medina is one that is so, you know, it's holistic. It differentiates between Hadith and Sunnah. Sunnah is the living tradition. And whereas Hadith is the historical archives. It's, you know, like records, I guess, as Ramadi Saab does put it. He does put it very well, actually, that what's this? Cha cha cha. So yeah, this is a fascinating question. Yeah, can you midlife crisis or the plural crises? Why is it that humans go through a spiritual experience at set times through life? You know, the more I think about these things, that there is this whole dunya, it is a configuration, you know, it is a game, a simulation that is designed by Allah, you know, divinely put together. And in this simulation are codes and you know, there are pathways, there are patterns, and these things speak to us. So yeah, so this thing of a midlife crisis, you see, it's been well, I guess it's got the term now, crisis, so it's been negatively portrayed or never negatively set up. So we now view these things as a crisis of sorts and something to either avoid or to. But really, the Quran often speaks of the age of 40. And as a person acquires that, they get closer to it. Something changes. Now, to some people, it may be much sooner, and to some, it may be later. And there may be some people who, from the very get go, almost, you know, once they attain a sense of maturity and puberty and so on, maybe some people have had that even as far back as then, but these will be very rare people. And there may be some people who never attain this kind of existential awakening, renaissance. So, but it is, I feel, necessary to, you know, as Carl Jung, when he said that the numinous is necessary for a person to navigate through the latter half of their lives. So yeah, that's where we're at, you see, with things like, because when a person hits that stage, there is like an existential angst, a panic, an anxiety, and they're seeking something. It's like they're drowning all of a sudden and they need to hold on to something. But what that actually is this search for a numinous, this transcendent experience, this relationship, meaning beyond just matter. And then that guides us through the latter half of our lives. So yeah, now so I think these things have such a blessing, although they may be characterized with a turmoil, a bit like puberty. So when a person's going through puberty, there's hormones and there's mood swings and there's an angst, a teenage angst, and an unruliness about an individual and a growth, and then they transform into a a different almost human being, looking different and becoming different, growing and you know maturing, and that's what's happening existentially and emotionally and spiritually at that stage when a person reaches the midlife, middle age. If we're to say anything, 40 is an interesting number because, like I said, the Quran, you وَبَلَغَ أَرْبَعِينَ سَنَةً, Allah says the person reaches that age of 40 years. And prophethood is often centered around that age as well. But there is something about that age that it kind of brings an autofocus to life. If a person gets through it successfully, of course. There can be, I suppose, many a distraction and calamity as well at that stage. But khair, there is something going on. And a person, if you find that calling, you must respond to it. It is, if you find that calling, it is calling you. That the poet, he said, إذا القوم قالوا من فتى خلت عنني عنيت فلم أكسل ولم أتبلد. If the people were to say that, who is that person? I assume that it is me they are talking about. And so I didn't hold back, the poet says, and I did not, drag my knuckles, so to speak, and kind of slack. But that one must respond to the calling. So yeah, khair, that's on that. Right. Allah, Allah. Imi, Allah. We were talking the other day. This is a good question, actually. Are there any more mind traps? There's many, many mind traps, inshallah, en route and coming. So hang in there, inshallah. Sabran sabra. Yeah, we were discussing that, with AI and all of this that's happening, it's crazy where technology is taking us, and it's bewildering and amazing and beautiful at the same time, because it's really making life so much easier in many ways. And so we were having this discussion that, based on this, would it be that everybody would now just be so capable? Everybody would have their own lawyer, their own medical expert, their own, and maybe these things will be. But I have a hypothesis where I feel that, based on the Pareto Principle, that actually the more this technology becomes available, this intelligence becomes more rolled out, I feel that the less intelligent the majority of people will become. So it's going to have an adverse effect. But the 20% will become exceptionally intelligent. So, but the 80%, I feel it may have an adverse further dumbing down of people. Because there is something, there is this kind of balance in the cosmos, that the more difficult something is to attain, the greater the yearning to attain it. And it doesn't follow that the more accessible it becomes, the more people access it. which is counterintuitive because you would assume that that is the case, that the more accessible something becomes, the more people access it. And by that, I mean here, but when I say the most accessible something, I mean by that information, and I mean by that knowledge and skills. So I don't mean just like saying, oh, the internet has become accessible so everybody accesses it. That's not what I mean. I mean a skill set of information, skills, or knowledge. So one would assume that the more accessible something is, the more people would harness that skill set and hone their skills and information. But it's not true. And we often find there's almost an inverse pattern. So you take the internet as an example, that let's say many years ago, let's say 150 years ago, you approach somebody with the idea of the internet, or 200 years ago, and you told them that, there's going to be a time where you will have this unfathomable amount of information at your fingertips. So you want to learn something, there's videos available on it. You want to read about something, it's readily there. You want to watch something, listen to something, you want to explore a new language, it is all there. You want to explore a new skill set, it is all there. Now, if we told this to somebody 200 years ago, they would assume that that's absurd, because then everybody on earth would just be so skillful and intelligent. But as we fast forward, it's clearly not true. So most people will just use the internet to post a photo of their lunch and a picture of their pet and just self-obsessed photographs. I mean, there's, each to their own. I'm not judging them in that sense, but that's all it is, isn't it? It's very vain, ultimately. How many people actually have harnessed a skill set? I would say that it's really just falls on that principle of the 80-20. 20% of people have probably become far more intelligent than the average person because of the internet. But 80% of people probably are less keen to learn because it's available. Because they think, if I need to find out, I can just Google it. It's a bit like saying the more GPS and maps are available, the less we remember directions. Because we think, we don't need to remember directions. It's all there, it's on the phone. So, yeah. Shukran, Allah bless you all. What's your hair protocol? What did the poet say? عيت جوابا فما بالربع من أحد. Allah, no, right, there's and there's no reply. The person he calls out and nothing responds. There's, I could tell you my hair protocol, but you wouldn't follow it. So, as we say, calora. What will one gain by sharing it, I guess. Let's replace scholars in the future. It is interesting. I must say, ChatGPT is now bloody good. It is good now. And I feel if we give it another year, it's Allahu A'lam. Now it is good. a year ago or a year and a half ago, I can't recall precisely, I asked it some questions on Jarh wa Ta'dil in Hadith. So I asked it to comment on, I can't recall, a few narrators. I said, and I asked Google as well. So I'm an Android person. So I tend to use often uh, Gemini as my kind of AI. But I use ChatGPT as well. And I'd asked both of these questions about certain ruwat and narrators. I think it must have been about a year to about a year and a half ago. And I mean, at that stage, it was pathetic. It was so basic. It was responding. I asked it about Hisham. I asked about several narrators, but here's a very popular narrator, Hisham ibn Urwa. And I said, well, tell me about Hisham, or tell me about this narration in Sahih al-Bukhari. And at that stage, let's say going back about a year to a year and a half ago, it responded with such. Sahih al-Bukhari is a book collection of hadith, which are transmissions from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and such a simple answer. Like it, Hisham is a Muslim narrator of the, so basic. It's like the knowledge of, let's say, you're going to equate it to a 10, 11-year-old speaking. Now, I think, was it recently, maybe a month ago, or maybe about 6 weeks ago or something, I can't remember. I asked it again, and it was on point. Allah. The jarah, the critiques, this. And I was testing it because, everybody knows that Hisham ibn Urwa was criticized by Imam Malik. And, to me, as a person, and that's my choice, Imam Malik is sufficient. I follow Imam Malik, and so Hisham's narrations are always questionable. But you see, when you ask people for the criticism on Imam Malik, they may cite, for some disclosure, Imam Malik saying, well, he became influenced and fearing a sense of corruption with him. But people like Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan have criticized him and harshly criticized him. But most people won't stumble upon that. That's like a rare finding. But now ChatGPT is like bang, 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 bang. It's Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan said this, and he said this, and he said this. It's like, wow. ChatGPT has now grown up. It's on it. I'm telling you, it is now something else. But it makes mistakes at times, so you've got to be wary. And sometimes it will. So you've got to kind of go back and edit your prompts and things. But it is something now. And now it has that. Now it has that deep search feature where. The other day I met up with Sheikh Sidi Iqbal, and we ended up speaking about the narrator Waqidi. And I said, well, okay, let's run a deep search, see how good ChatGPT is. And wow, I ran a deep search thing on it. I'm telling you, that was a master's thesis right there. Because in deep search it says, well, okay, allow me 20 minutes to come back with, and it had an entire essay. But yeah, right. So yeah, that's that. I'll tell you something else I was looking into recently. I was looking into this whole theory of sacred geometry, And I was looking into things like energy lines throughout the globe. And it's interesting that people who've preoccupied themselves with that, they've seen that sacred sites throughout the world are almost always and important sites along these so-called energy lines. And this is naturally contentious. And some people say, well, this is more about certain, the earth at certain points has like an amplified magnetic field. So to some people, they felt maybe this is a kind of geomagnetic resonance that is amplified, and that's what people mean by energy lines, and other people have debunked them, and including the Kaaba is on, according to these people that say this, on an energy line. And I found that interesting, that the Kaaba is perhaps, if not near, then on or in that region of the center of the global, this field, this energy, this. But I was exploring all of this and this kind of sacred geometry. And this took me to this whole, the Platonic solids and these kind of 5 shapes that the ancients felt were something sacred about them, where, each side of it is connected identically to each side, like a cube, and you have a tetrahedron, and you'll have 5 of these, and they reflected each one with an element, with air, water, fire, etc. And I was just exploring all of this, and this thing they call these patterns, where they put these kind of overlapping concentric circles in certain numbers and then draw lines, and then that subsumes and encapsulates every possible shape on earth that one can imagine. And they call it, beginning with the seed of life to the plant of life, but the flower of life. And this pattern being found in all these ancient sites, like these, like the temples in Egypt and in China and in India and all over the world, thousands of years old. And found in Islamic kind of architecture as well. And it really got me I was just kind of quite mesmerized with the whole thing, that I do feel that there is in it this, if this configuration that Allah has created is done by some divine coding, that it's a simulation, then perhaps these patterns, these intricate ancient patterns, things like the flower of life, they contain or they mirror something that speaks to us, because it, the people all over the world have picked up something very mystical and almost transcendent about these patterns. And whether they contain the golden mean within them, or they contain, because when you think about it, all of these things, like the fact that you have the golden mean, the golden ratio, it is found in nature. It is what it is, ultimately it is a pattern, isn't it? That we're looking at 1.618. Like, these are numbers essentially, but they are in everything. So yeah, it got me. I was quite I was like quite mystified by this whole thing, because I guess if we're dealing with something, one thing we know is that this world, matter is ultimately energy, and energy is information. So, and Allah would have designed the world in a way that you could almost unstitch it rationally eventually. You could get there, because the universe is a divine book. Allah says He placed the signs that fil afaq, wa fi anfusikum, and in ourselves. So from the cosmos right down to the quantum. So yeah. And if it is like that, what are the signs that you would look for? But yeah, this is also some, where my mind has been wandering recently. Right. So, how do you feel about the Dawa sphere turning on Daniel Haqiqat Jew completely? Has it? Right. So I don't know. Has it? I've not really been following for years this kind of whole. So I don't really know the latest about who's turned on who. But khair, that is the nature of fitna itself, you see. Eventually, as the poet, he says that النار تأكل بعضها إن لم تجد ما تأكل. That the fire, you see, fire eventually consumes itself if it has nothing else to consume. Right, people, with that, I'm gonna wrap this. The equipment's working, which is Allah be praised. And yeah, we'll come back to this, inshallah. Right, so till then, take very good care of yourselves, and we will meet again. Salamullahi alaikum. Right, and those of you, I forgot to, those of you who do wish to reach out, you'll see me soon now back on this, but you can through Instagram, or you can head over to Patreon. We do have a Discord, which is through the Patreon. So that's patreon.com/Malm. And that's where I also do my one-to-one consultations with people. Right, with that, ya jama'ah, take very good care of yourselves. Allah bless you all. Wassalamullahi alaikum.